this as well, so you guys have access to that. I'm going to be posting yesterday's on YouTube when I get back to school, so I'll do that tomorrow. Make a note to myself to get that done. So we're going to talk about the silver exchange and global commerce with this, and how silver really kind of plays a huge role within this. It's really more important than the actual spice trade itself. So yesterday we talked about the importance of the spice trade, and this silver is going to be way more important than the spice trade ever could have been, just because of the wealth that it gives to each group. There's huge silver deposits that are discovered in Bolivia, okay, and also in Japan around the mid 16th century, so 1500s there. And in the early modern period, you have Spanish America that provides about 85% of the silver, the world silver that existed there. There's also a demand within China. China's economy is huge and has that growing demand for silver as well. So in the 1570s, the Chinese government is actually going to consolidate taxes into a single tax that would be paid in silver. And what that does is it really shoots up the value of silver, that skyrockets immensely. And foreigners with silver could purchase more Chinese products than they had ever purchased really before. And so that's another point that leads us into this. And so silver becomes this central player within the realm of trade. There is something known as a silver drain, okay, to Asia, where the bulk of the world's silver is actually ending up in China. Most of the rest reach other parts of Asia. So the silver drain becomes this idea of Europeans really trading that group to it. The Spanish bring silver to Europe. And the Spanish, when they bring the silver to Europe, it's used to buy Asian goods across there. It also buys African slaves and Asian spices as well. So all of those things. The Spanish piece of eight is widely used for the international exchange. Um, it is the standard Spanish silver coin that was there. So that's known as the piece of eight. Okay, the Spanish silver coin becomes a big part of that. In Potosi, Bolivia, becomes the largest city in the Americas, a population of about 160,000, because it has the world's largest silver mine. So go figure, right? It's going to have that point of emphasis on it there. So that's the reason behind Potosi, Bolivia, becoming that. The city's wealth is going to be seen within European elite who live within the life of luxury there. Native American miners are going to live a very horrid, in very horrid conditions and difficult times. And then women find some new economic opportunities there as well. This here is a map of the silver being one of the first major commodities, showing the where they come from and how they move through that. So you could see in South America there, you see Potosi, the town in Peru, or near in the Viceroyalty of Peru. You could see how that leaves different areas. It goes all the way to Mexico City, comes over to places like Spain, moves into Russia, all the way across the Pacific Ocean too, as well, and around Cape Town and into India. So you could see the movement of silver within this direction. This is the colonial era painting showing the rich silver mines of Potosi. It's a global source of kind of the precious metals for the largest really city in the Americas there. And it shows that silver mining point. So what are the effects? Okay. The effects on Spain. It really does enrich the Spanish monarchy, does silver. At a point in time, you're talking about Spain being the most powerful country in the world, and this is the time that Spain is the most powerful country in the world. They use the silver that they gain from these different areas to really push themselves into being a major power. But the economy itself is really too rigid. They are so focused on the ideas of just having silver. They don't really ever show focus um, in terms of um, industrializing their own ideals. So they're just paying with silver. So what ends up happening is inflation takes place. There's no product that comes out of these things. They're not using the silver other than to buy goods and bring them in. So we start to see that inflation becomes a big part of that. The Spanish aristocrats, excuse me, are very much against the economic enterprise. They are just happy with kind of using the influx of silver, and it combines the climate function fluctuations during that time that we know is known as the Little Ice Age, um, and it causes a general crisis within the 17th century. So Spain will lose its dominance when the value of silver falls right around 1600. So you're talking about early 17th century there. The Japanese government is going to profit more from silver than did the Spanish, right? The Tokugawa shoguns used the silver to defeat rivals and unify their own country. So that becomes a bonus there. They work with the merchant class to develop kind of a market-based economy, and with the ideals of heavy investment in agriculture and industry as well. In China, silver further kind of commercializes the country's economy. People needed to sell something to obtain silver to pay for their taxes as well. And so the economy becomes more regionally specialized. So you start to see different parts of each region kind of joining together in those ideals. And they have a process known as deforestation, which was a growing problem. It wasn't addressed as it was in Japan, which would be deforestation, kind of the removal of some of those ideals. And then the role of Europeans. In reality, guys, they become essentially the middlemen in world trade. They funnel American silver to Asia due to the Europeans. And the Asian commodities take the market share from European products. So in reality, all that they're doing, the Europeans are doing is funneling money that comes from the Americas to Asia without actually doing anything to kind of represent themselves at this point in time. It's not until later when really the English start using the colonies that they create within the Americas as ways to industrialize themselves and change their future. Okay, the world hunt for fur in the global commerce. So you're talking about Europe's supply of fur-bearing animals being diminished by 1500. So we don't see a lot of fur that is around that would be able to do this. And the Little Ice Age in Europe, what really increases the demand for fur. They need more and more because of the fact that there's drop within the climate. So there's a huge competition for furs within North America. The French are going to be a very prominent player in this, in what is known as the St. Lawrence Valley, the Great Lakes area, up near Michigan, Wisconsin, and even further up into Canada, and all along the Mississippi. The British traders are going to move into places like the Hudson Bay region, and they will move to what is now New York as well, or excuse me, the Dutch move into New York there to kind of take over that fur trading ideal. Really, the French are going to be the ones who are going to be at the forefront of this. The North American fur trade, as it's known, Europeans are usually going to trade with Indians for furs or skins rather than kind of hunting and trapping them on their own. There's a huge environmental impact on this. The beaver and other animals are driven to really near extinction. At this time, you start to see them really having a huge loss. So the environmental impact is crazy. Native American sources comment on that impact as well. There are sources out there that we see. And by the 1760s, you have hunters within the southeastern British colonies taking around 500,000 deer every single year. there was trade that's very profitable as well with the Indians there on that second point. They receive a bunch of trade goods that become part of this. The Huron chiefs will enhance the authority that they had within this. And the Indians kind of fall prey, though, as we all know, we've talked about this, to European diseases. But the fur trade generated a much higher level of inter-Indian warfare, more deadly than the European firearms. So you start to see the combat between those groups, and the Iroquois will begin producing things like ginseng for export to China. They'll rent land out, they'll work for wages, and they use currency within that. The Native Americans will become very dependent on European trade goods, iron tools, cooking pots, gunpowder weapons, European textiles, things like flint and steel. And as a result, you see that many traditional crafts are actually lost during this time. So Native Americans start to lose their own ideals within this. Many animal species are depleted through things like overhunting. And you see a very destructive power of alcohol on the Indian societies that was traded to them by the Europeans. There's implications for Native American women during the fur trade as well. Many Native women marry European traders who are kind of facilitating kind of a cross-cultural exchange there. The status of men is enhanced by the focus on hunting within Native American tribes, and some new opportunities will arise for women with the production of things like wild rice and maple syrup and things like that. Here on this map, guys, we are looking at the transfer of things like pelts out to different areas. There are a couple different ones. Even the Russians become involved with this. The Russian fur trade region is up in the Alaska area, but they moved it down as far into northern California, up there to that portion of things. And then you see the English fur trade region in the orange, and the French is there in the all the way through the brown areas there on the map. So the Russian fur trade, profits of fur were the chief kind of incentive for Russian expansion. Fur is deemed a soft gold. All right, a soft gold, meaning that there's an abundance of it, but it's used to almost as a currency is the fur that the Russians gain. There's a very similar toll on native Siberians that was had on the Indians as well. You have disease taking its toll on the local peoples. Within that, there's dependence on Russian goods as well, and the depletion of fur-bearing animals within those regions that they are hunting too. So there's plenty of those things that exist. The Russians really didn't have competition either, though. So they forced people like the Siberians to kind of provide fur instead of negotiating commercial agreements that they might have had. And private Russian hunters and trappers will compete directly with the Siberian groups within this. So the fur trapping is going to be a big part of this. This portrait here, it's a colored engraving. It shows the 16th century Russian ambassador arriving at court with the Holy Roman Emperor there, and he's bearing gifts of animal pelts, okay, which at that point in time was very rich for that group of people. So I was going to get going on the next part, guys, because you read the commerce in people and the transatlantic slave trade, but we stopped reading right there. So I'm going to just hold that off until Friday instead of going through that portion of things. Okay. So I will